Okay. Good evening. We welcome you here to the regular meeting of West Valley City Council. We call our meeting to order. We note that we have a quorum present. We have 8 members of the council attending. Councilman Jake Fitisimano is excused tonight. With that then, as we have developed in our tradition, we will do the inside the video presentation.
I'm Roxanne Vainuku, Public Information Officer for the West Valley City Police Department, and joining me today is Detective Mike Millett, who works with our traffic unit. We're talking this week about crosswalk safety. Kids are headed back to school, and we want to make sure that they get to school safely and they get home safely. So there have been some changes in the law surrounding crosswalks. We want to talk a little bit about the difference between a school crosswalk and a regular crosswalk and what that means for you, the driver, and how you will behave when you reach one of these crosswalks. Detective Millett, what's the difference between the crosswalks? As far as when we're driving, how do we know we're approaching a school crosswalk or a regular crosswalk?
Perfect. There are the two types, like you say. You have the school crosswalk, which are a ladder style crosswalk where there are bars going across the roadway. And then there's a non-school crosswalk, which are the just 2 solid stripes going from each side of the road clear across. And you treat each one of those differently. The school crosswalk, you must yield to the pedestrian anywhere in that crosswalk. If they step off the curb anywhere in there, both sides of the road have to stop for them until they reach the other side and then step up on the curb. Then either direction, both can go. A non-school zone crosswalk is that just 2 solid stripes. The law states you must yield to them on your half of the roadway. So as you're approaching, if they're on your half of the roadway, you must stop and yield for them until they get to the other half of the roadway and out of your side or lane of travel, your half of the roadway, then you can proceed. If they're coming from the other direction, you must yield to them as they are so close to cause a hazard or as they're approaching your half of the roadway to give them that buffer window to stop for traffic and make it across.
Excellent. So just remember, if you come to a crosswalk and it's marked by that ladder marking on the ground, that's a school crosswalk. And you can't proceed as long as there's a pedestrian in that crosswalk from the curb to the other curb. If you come up on a regular crosswalk, you can go ahead and proceed. Once the pedestrian's gotten out of your half of the travel lanes, you can go ahead and move through there. And you'll know that you're in a regular pedestrian crosswalk because it will have just 2 lines delineating where that crosswalk is, and it won't have those ladder markings.
Yep.
So we hope that that clarifies crosswalk behavior and helps to keep kids safe as they head back to school.
All right. Helpful information. Let's see. We have our minutes of our last meeting, which was July 27th. A motion on the minutes.
Move to approve the minutes of July 27th.
Second.
Properly before us. Hearing no further comments, then without objection, the minutes will be approved. Hearing no objections, the minutes are approved unanimously. Let's see. Next, we have our public comment period. And we do have 2 comment periods tonight. We have our general one, which people can speak to any issue. Doesn't have to be on our agenda even, but we do have a special public comment hearing on Resolution 21-139, the West Valley City budget. Those are specifically designed, and on that one, it's only the budget, nothing else. So we do have several people who have signed up to speak this evening. Some I don't recognize here. I would simply remind you that we do have a 5-minute limitation. We also ask that you direct your all your comments to me as the mayor, not to individual members of the council. Be respectful. It is not a question and answer period. It's not a debating time. It's your time. So you can just present. The only time I've ever interrupted anyone was when someone just had some foul language. And so, or started yelling and being disruptive. Those are very, very infrequent. So the time is yours to use as you would like.
We do have a couple of people online as well, Mayor, just as a reminder.
Oh, okay, for the public comment part, yeah. Okay, well, I guess we could do those first. Why don't we take those who are listening in electronically, and I would remind everyone that we as a city have opted to do both in-person and electronic participation. So people can watch us, people can actually come in and speak in our meeting. They have to do that ahead of time so they get all the information to participate. And so with that then, who's first?
The first one is Dennis Tenney.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you fine.
Good, thank you. I'm not here to speak specifically on the budget. It's with respect to a nuisance situation in our neighborhood. I was on the city council in Sandy for 28 years. I know what you good people go through. I know Councilman Don Christensen, and my wife worked with Mayor Bigelow in the state legislature for many years. My hat is off to each of you. For the last nearly 2 years, we have lived in the Bingham Point Homeowners Association. It's located on the southeast corner of 3100 South and 7200 West. For the last few years, we've had some terrible nuisance problems with the neighbor who lives on 3115 South, 7200 West. They're original homeowners. We represent 81 homes, which I think is probably 120 to 150 registered voters. We're a vibrant, wonderful community. There are 7 homes that have been impacted severely with nuisance. The trees from the neighbor to the north, the original homeowner, are overgrown. They have caused numerous bug infestations to the point that several of our residents, the bugs get into their homes, cupboards, beds, tubs, everywhere. One of the residents along that property line has spent several $100s having their deck cleaned. And so I'm bringing to your attention specifically to request 2 things. Number one, and one of our residents visited with one of your code enforcement officers who indicated that there wasn't a whole lot that could be done. Calling to specifically ask you to do 2 things. Number one, if you would be kind enough to have someone from your code enforcement go out and visit with this neighbor located at 3115 South, 7200 West, and encourage them to voluntarily cut down their trees at their expense and eliminate and help eradicate the bug infestation problem. And number 2, I would respectfully like to encourage West Valley City Planning Department, Planning Commission, City Council to revise and review your city ordinance on nuisances. We have taken the time to look at the nuisance ordinances of Sandy City, West Jordan, South Jordan, several other cities, and we have a proposed nuisance ordinance language that we'd love to have you give some serious consideration to. We've looked at the state nuisance ordinance code, which indicates that a nuisance is anything which is injurious to health, indecent, offensive to the senses, or an obstruction to the free use of property so as to interfere with the comfortable enjoyment of life and property. And so, and I could email the letters. We hired an attorney to contact the adjacent property owner. There's been mild, significant resistance, and without the appropriate use of police power of the city, we sort of feel like our efforts have fallen on deaf ears. We've spent months and months trying to work with them, and it's expensive and it's inappropriate. So I'm And I can email a letter, copy of the letter from our attorney that shows photos that was sent, letters of the 7 homeowners who've been severely impacted. But I'm asking specifically if you would be kind enough to have your code enforcement people go visit with these neighbors. And then also if you would give serious consideration to revising through the public hearing process, the planning department, planning commission, the city council, and substantially strengthening the nuisance ordinance to protect residents like us and other communities, neighborhoods in West Valley City who undoubtedly are going to be impacted by similar circumstances. Those are my respectful requests. I've got a ton of information I can email. If I can email that to Nicole Carmack and share it with you and your planning staff, Mayor Bigelow, that would be wonderfully, very much appreciated. Those are my comments.
Thank you very much. We'll probably have some comments at the end, but let's go to our next person.
Next, we have Mark Chadwick.
Hi, Mayor Bigelow and staff members. Appreciate your time and thanks for meeting this evening. I think it's a great opportunity for the public and for those in this city to have this council meetings. And I think I've had previous experiences where I've shared some needs for the city through this meeting, and I really appreciate the staff, city managers and whatnot that have addressed those needs. So I'm coming to you for almost a similar issues, as far as a nuisance issue, a noise ordinance issue. I almost, when I saw the KSL special that they put on Thursday night, I had mixed feelings because part of me was like, yes, this is something really bothering me and those in my neighborhood. And then part of me is like, hey, wait, they're stealing my thunder. So anyway, no pun. So with that in mind, so I usually don't come to the council meetings and won't come to you, Mayor, unless I know that this is something that's not just bothering me, it's bothering several people. And it's several people that I get plenty of comments in my collaborations with those in our neighborhood about noise ordinance issues here in our specific area. And I think for the city as a whole, I was wanting to just approach you to put it on your radar. You're talking about budgets. Maybe we can include in the budgets decibel meters, and I know also the one other reason why I don't typically will call the police on this was because by the time the offender has done the offense, he's come and gone. So it's kind of hard to pin them down, or to, I would imagine, for the police force to allocate resources to stake out the street or something to that effect. But so what am I asking for? So we have a vehicle that has a really loud muffler in my area here in West Valley, on the area of 56 West, 35th South, particularly Sunshine Drive. And it's a daily occurrence. It has been for the past year and a half. And a lot of people are just getting really fed up with it. And so I've filed some reports. And like I mentioned, I've never called the police. I have confronted him, and my neighbor across the street has talked to him, but he almost takes it in an opposite effect in that we tell him, hey, your muffler's really loud. And he takes it as if we think that's really cool. And I don't know if he just is not having the comprehensive ability to say that we would like for him to just drive slowly out of the neighborhood, try to not offend it. But that doesn't mean once he turns on 35th and has to get up to 45 miles an hour, that the RPMs, once they get over like 1,000 RPMs, that thing is loud. And it's well over 100 decibels, well over. And from 50 feet away, I've measured him at 98 decibels. So anytime during the day, as I've looked up the code and what that means and what that is, it's in violation even during the daytime. He occasionally will come home late at night too and revs the engine before he shuts it off because he gets a thrill out of it, right? So what am I asking is is there some proposed solutions for this? I appreciate gentlemen reaching out to me from city management, and I believe some actions will be taken for this instance. But I think for the city as a whole, I would love to see some more enforcement as far as noise ordinance goes, some budget allocated, some resources allocated, to kind of just get the word out that these mufflers and things that are of a nuisance, that is a growing trend, and maybe it's not, but it's often enough. And I live right by 3500 South, and it's not just my neighbor that's got the issue, that's treating our street like the old Rocky Mountain raceways, that it's happening on 35th South. So I see I got about 30 seconds left. Again, really appreciate all that you guys do. I appreciate our West Valley City's finest, our law enforcement, our firemen, and I've been a member or resident of the city for all my life, 40 plus years, and just hope to see this city continue to grow and improve. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Lindy O'Doyne.
Sorry, Mayor, there's still more online.
Oh, there's more online. I thought I said there were two. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Next, we have Mike Rigdon.
Wow, I don't want to be a nuisance to the city council or you, Mayor, of course, because I have a difficult time hearing, and so hopefully you will listen intently with your deaf ears. Again, I appreciate the caller just before me, Mark, and talking about nuisance. I started talking to city council and the 1st of January, and you assured me that we were going to move forward, and you assured me of many things, and this nuisance is really going to be a problem, because I brought this up to the council, I brought this up to you, Mayor, in the racing of engines, the racing of motors. This isn't just the first time KSL did it. I actually brought this to your attention 2 or 3 or 4 months ago. And I've been a nuisance to you and you council people, including the other guy that's over there in the corner, but where he nuisanced me and butted in when I had the time that, I could speak my speak. But it really is a nuisance when I go walk in the city streets and I'm on a 25-mile-an-hour street, and I hear the rash of noises going up and down 4100 highway. It's new, it's improved. Oh, it's such a great highway, speedway, whatever you guys want to list it. But it has absolutely incredibly amount of noise that's being produced by the people going on the east side and on the west side, both directions, in between 4200 west and 5400 west. Now, why is that? It's a brand new raceway. Yeah, I talked about 2 months ago about all of you guys getting rid of the racetrack out in wherever it is, over there on 21st South, and everybody's now flooding out of Salt Lake City, and they're coming into West Valley City to run all these motors. And it's really sad that we have these bullet bikes that take off their mufflers and put a little thing on it that's called I don't know, it's some kind of I'm sure it gives them more horsepower. And the same way with cars, Harley Davidsons. These noises are detrimental to people that are trying to enjoy the beauty of walking on the street. People, you council people, the mayor, you need to get out of your Bigelow and go for a walk in your neighborhoods. I just can't understand why we have so much noise between the hours, let's say from, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock until 11 o'clock. And there's absolutely no enforcement of anything. They speed up and down each road, north and south of that highway. And then on our city streets, it's absolutely unbearable. I ask you to get out of your Bigelows. All of you can do it. I know you can. And I assure you, Mayor, just try it one time. You just might hear the noise. You just might. I don't know. You may have to take out your earplug. Don't go putting me on. I got 6 seconds. You all have a good night.
Thank you. Next.
Next, we have Jeff Farnsworth.
Oh, can you hear me all right?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. I'm just going to take a couple of quick minutes. And I also, I'm a neighbor of Mark Chadwick's, and I'm calling in to support what he has stated already regarding the noise. And it seems like it's a similar theme for many people this evening. The sounds that we are facing are ridiculously loud car engines. And the one in particular neighbor of ours who continues to fire up his engine well over 100 decibels has friends who also come in and they'll pull into their house or their yard and also fire up their engines. They do this at all hours of the night and day. It is a serious issue. They're waking people up at night. And it's interesting because they don't have to be going fast because of the way that they have tuned up their vehicles. They can go actually relatively slow. And so it is something that, yet I've seen them go out of the neighborhood slowly, and the revving, the loud noise is not there. So it seems to be something that's very much in their control. The reason I want to just state my support for what Mark said and others tonight is because this is something that has disrupted the peace and the security of our neighborhood. I know we hear cars further away than just right here. And I know that with the city police office over by the rec center at Centennial Park, which we are just our property line, our neighborhood bumps right up into. I know that if they are out and about in that area, they can hear this. I know it's difficult to find. I know it's difficult to catch, but something needs to be done. This is a serious issue. And so again, I just wanted to make a comment in support of what has already been stated. And that's kind of where I'm stating from tonight. So that's all I have to say. And thank you for your time, Mayor and City Council members.
Okay, thank you. Is that everyone electronically?
There's one person on here that didn't sign up, but I believe they may be here to speak for general public comment period.
Okay. We do have enough. We have probably more than we'll have time for. So I'll probably give preference to those who haven't spoken before. So But that's everyone online. That other individual is here.
Nope, he's online. I'm sure that someone just shared the meeting information with him.
Oh, okay.
Scott Burton. Doesn't look like he's.
Hello? If you're there, you're on mute. We sure can't hear you. Okay. Then we'll go to Lindy Bodoin.
Thank you, Mayor, for your attention. I'm here to present an issue in our new neighborhood at Newton Farms. It's about a park. We lived in this new development in Newton Farm for about 2.5 years or 2 years. And we purchased the land in January of 2019. And at that time, we were told about a future park. And since then, all our new and old neighbors that moved in have also been told about this new park. And sometime after phase 2 in 2020, 2021 was the time frame that they gave us that we'd probably have a park. And there's a colorful map located there with a nice design on it. So I know we're going to get a park. But the question is when? Many neighbors were anxiously waiting and they were hoping we'd get it this summer. And we never did. So my neighbor Nate, he called the developer and to get an update. And he said, well, it's not happening anytime soon because the city won't fund it. He said that he's not building it until he gets paid and that we would have to wait several years down the road. So Nate wrote a letter to the councilman in District 4 in July, but he never responded. And so many of the residents have children and large families, and we don't want to wait down the road. They grow up fast. And so I'm asking that you look into this and try to get it funded and built as soon as possible so the kids can enjoy their park while they can. And that's all I have. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Harold Burris? No, Harold. Harold Burris. Yeah, not Curtis. It's with a B. Well, I guess I can't hear. I can't speak either, I guess.
Mr. Mayor, I have a handout here, if I may pass out to the council.
If you will hand that to the city recorder.
I have 5 copies. I didn't know how many were going to be here. This is in regards to the property tax.
Okay, are you here to speak to the budget then?
Well, I don't know if it's for the budget or when.
Is it about the property tax increase?
Yes.
Okay, if you wouldn't mind just having a seat for a moment, we're
Sure.
going to have that separately.
Okay.
So we'll let you speak to that.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Okay. Then let's see, I think we have just a couple more minutes. So we have Daryl Curtis and Jim Visock still, but we had asked you to be brief because we cut off after 30 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I want to talk also about noise. I live right next to Mountain View Corridor, and there's no engine brake signs, and the semis are going down there, and they're very loud with the engine brakes. I don't know why it's more apparent now. I mean, during the day, during the night, all hours of the day, we hear that. There's no signs there to say noise ordinance, no engine brakes. So I would just ask, I know, contacts with the UDOT and so forth to at least put signs up. I know enforcing that ordinance is one thing, but at least with the signs, then they're put on notice. And it seems to work in other areas. And so I would like you to consider that. It is, we have the pollution now with the from the vehicles, and now we're having noise pollution, and it's just getting a little bit out of hand. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim?
For my time, if somebody else wants to talk, I've modified it to the budget.
I think that was everyone that had signed up. So you're going to speak to the budget?
Yeah, I
Okay.
changed all the budget.
With that then, and that just about right time. With that, we'll close the public comment period. Mr. Pyle, any comments?
No comments. Thanks, Mayor.
Council members?
Yes, Mayor. You hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I just reiterated. I want to say it again. We, the council here, we need to designate a small fund for the things that I just mentioned in study meeting. The people right here, they also saying that there is a loud noise and loud music. And it's not only one area, but multiple areas in our city. I think we need to have some kind of funding to target that area. To do something about it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Excuse me. Then with that, we'll go to the next item on our agenda, which is the budget. This will be consideration of resolution 21-139. This is our budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, and ending June 30th, 2022, our normal fiscal year. And that we also set our rate of tax and the levying of taxes on real and personal property and how those funds are allocated across the city. Our budget is pretty straightforward. It doesn't change a lot from year to year, although there are some differences. So with that, I will, unless any council member wants to highlight anything from the budget. Oh, looks like Councilwoman Lang, you have your hand up?
No, that's just the cursor, but don't we have a presentation on the budget? We probably ought to have that before comment. So
Okay, thank you. Then let's do that.
Thanks, Mayor. So in accordance with our normal procedure, we'd like to have our finance director, Mr. Jim Welch, come and give an overview of the proposed budget and pertinent detail to that.
Thank you for the intro, Mr. Pyle. I'm Jim Welch. I'm the finance director for the city. And the adoption of the budget and the truth and taxation hearing is both accomplished with this meeting tonight. The adoption of the budget is for the fiscal year 2022, which, as the mayor had mentioned, started on July 1st of this year and runs through the June 30th of next year. The budget is a very structured process by which city administration puts together a budget that is proposed to take care of the needs of the city based on the available resources and the demands and the direction of the city council. So the city council is ultimately the one that will adopt this budget. That's why we're considering it tonight. It promotes efficiency in government, just like a household budget might, where we balance the income and the revenues with the available resources that we have. It's also designed to be a document of public disclosure and transparency, where we will actually have this budget posted on our website. It'll be at the recorder's office so that anybody can always access that budget and look at what's being spent on the various funds and the various line items within that budget. It's also required that we have a balanced budget like by state law, which is a little bit different than our federal government, as you probably noticed lately. But because of that, we're required to budget conservatively, make sure that we don't budget beyond our means. It's also prepared to national standards, which means that there's some guidelines that we have on the way that we present it so that it's transparent, so that it's readable, and so that it's clear, at least as clear as we can get it so that people can understand it when they pick it up and read it. To that end, we usually apply for national recognition and receive that national recognition for the document presentation for about 28 years now. So it's been very successful that way. We feel like we're in compliance with that disclosure. The drivers that shape our budget come from a number of different places. First one is regulatory requirements, which we kind of talked about. That requires us to have that balanced budget. Just like any operation or business, we have to balance increasing costs and services and operations. Very rarely do we have the costs go down. Occasionally, we will always look for things that we can gain efficiencies with, whether it be fuel use or efficiencies through solar, or else even just evaluating the way that we do business. That's something that the administration does. We evaluate this constantly. And then when the budget's put together, we include those in this budget to reflect any changes that might come up. Also, we are pressured by the aging infrastructure. That's buildings that continue to age, roads that continue to degrade, all the infrastructure that supports the city, and then the maintenance costs of those things to maintain them in good working order. There's a couple of things that drive us financially. The last 2 years, we've had COVID-19, which has impacted the city in a couple of different ways. In some ways, it's reduced our revenues. It's caused some of our operations to not bring in the revenue that they normally would because people haven't been able to attend. We've also had some uncertainty in those with regards to things like sales tax and with regards to user fees, building permits, cost of construction. All those things have impacted the budget. So it remains somewhat fluid. With that information, we put together the best budget that we can. And this is the proposed budget that we have this year. If you've watched our presentation, you'll recognize this slide. The top part is the revenues and where the city brings in the revenues for the general fund, which is the operations fund of the city. We have a fairly balanced revenue structure where we have approximately a third of the revenue that comes in to operate the city coming in from property tax, about a third from sales tax, and then about a third, a little bit less from user fees, impact fees, justice court revenues, licenses and permits, and various other miscellaneous type of revenues. The expenditures, because we are a service government, almost half of this goes to public safety. So we have 33% that goes to support the police department. We have another 15% for fire. And then the remainder is apportioned out there and goes to cover parks, streets. Non-departmental is actually a large section in there that includes things like some of our capital projects. It includes transfers to various other activities within the city, such as golf courts to support them. Then we also have parks, and we have community education, finance. We have the legal department administration. Tonight, we have a public hearing to consider not only adopting the budget, but also to adopt adjusting the property tax rate through what's called a truth in taxation hearing. Because of that, I'll just kind of go over what your property tax bill usually looks like. And this is something that the citizens, if they'd like to, they can actually bring this chart up on our website, put the value that they think their home is worth, and get an estimate of where their property tax might be. This calculator is something that we use to just give people a guess on approximately where they're going to be and where their tax money is going. So the average home in West Valley City actually right now was updated to $315,000. That's the notice that was published in the newspaper, and I'll show you that in a minute. The example that was just on this slide is $375,000. Of that, you'd have an estimated bill of just over $3,000. Majority of that going to the school district, then that down to the various other entities. West Valley would collect about 23% of that property tax. Of that 23% that West Valley receives, of course, we go through the expenditures that I showed you before. It goes to police, fire, and all the other operations of the city. If you take the newspaper, which seem to be getting a little bit more scarce lately, this is the notice that we're actually required to print. It's called a notice of proposed tax increase. It's designed by the state to show what the impact of the adjustment for the tax rate would do for an average homeowner in West Valley City. Now, in this case, West Valley City, although it says proposed tax increase, a couple of things are in play here. This has to do with adopting what's called a judgment levy. And a judgment levy is something that affects the income of the city by when someone or a large business or corporation goes in and protests the value of their property. They say, I've been paying my property tax. That's been way too high lately because you've assessed my property at more than it's actually worth. This actually gets adjudicated and a judgment is awarded to the entity, and all of those property tax paying entities, West Valley City included, have to rebate the back taxes to those businesses. Well, state law says that the city can collect the flat amount of revenue that they collected the previous year, plus any new growth, which would mean any new construction. So if we're entitled to collect a certain amount, but we still have to pay out a judgment that goes back for several years, it leaves a hole in our budget. So a number of years ago, West Valley City adopted a process of going through truth in taxation to just keep our property tax revenues level without doing a true property tax increase. This is just an adjustment. This year, the judgment levy was about $43,000, which is the lowest we've seen in years. We've seen them as high as over $2.5 million in previous years. So it's not a big hole, but it opens up the discussion for the public, for the council, and for us to consider taxes and the important role that they play in running the city. Just by note of interest, last year, the property tax rate, the actual rate that West Valley City charged was 0.003263. This year, the property tax rate went down by 8%. And that completely had to do with just the increase in values of your homes. So as your value goes up on your home, your actual tax that you pay doesn't go up, it actually goes down. Now, individually, you might see variations in that. But overall, if you take everybody in the big pool of property tax, if your value goes up, your amount of tax that you pay remains the same. So today, as we consider this, the impact of that $43,000 on a home that's worth $315,000 is about 69 cents for 1 year. So it's not really a big deal. On a business, it would be $1.26. Most people won't even notice that because of all the other entities that are involved in the property tax. And what it does is it does keep West Valley City's revenue flat this year for property tax collections. With that, I'd be happy to take questions or whatever the council desires.
Any final comments, Mr. Pyle?
I do, but only after if the other council members have questions first, Mayor.
Okay. I don't see anyone raising their hand or, well, I see a raised hand, but it's the mouse. Okay, so it looks like we don't have any comments from the council. So Mr. Pyle.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. So I just wanted to ask Mr. Welch a couple of clarifying questions, which may help the public as they're considering this. So as we all know, these property tax statements, as we get them year to year, are long and complicated. So just for clarification again, so even though we saw a property tax rate decrease, our actual taxes didn't decrease. We didn't lower taxes, correct?
That is correct.
Right. So by Utah state law, what we were attempting to do is keep our revenue collections level or flat, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Okay. Also, by the same token, we haven't raised taxes either, other than this very small 69 cents a year on the house that we're recapturing through the judgment levy, correct?
That is also true.
Now, it's also true that individuals may see various increases on their taxes through the school district, other entities or whatever. We did not impose those also, correct?
That is absolutely true.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that everybody hears and is clear on that, because it can get, you can see significant increases on a tax bill year to year and have nothing to do with the city or any given or particular entity in that year. I think that's it, Mayor. I think that's all I wanted to make sure I brought out.
Okay. Just a clarification, when you say flat, that refers to the city as a whole.
Correct. Yes, us,
In-
our entity.
individual property owners may see significant fluctuations in their tax,
Yes,
even though there's no additional tax assessed by the city.
that the city imposed.
But there's always someone out there, one of the entities that
Right.
will be raising taxes, so seems like.
One of the-
Go ahead, Jim.
One of the influencers on that is that the county assesses the valuation on a home every 3 years or so, or as soon as they try and do it every year, but they're not able to get around to everybody. And that assessment may go to one house and raise the value, and they don't get to the other house. And so the property tax may go up on the house that the value went up and go down on the one that stayed lower. So there's those valuations, a lot of things like that happen. Also within our city, there are a number of different taxing districts between mosquito abatement districts, water districts. So if you might even compare your property tax notice with your neighbor and find differences, but they are not the city's property tax rate.
And actually, we are restricted on that by state law. So it's not like we can sneak anything in. It's when we keep it level in total, we do.
Jim, can I ask you a question about the sale tax?
Please.
Okay, thank you. It looked like we have the property taxes 34% and the sale taxes right now is 37%. Is that right? In the chart, I just saw that you presented to us earlier. You're thinking about the future. Right now, basically, the sale tax is past the property tax right now. In the future, we can use that revenue in our city here as the sale tax. We'll focus on that more than the property tax.
Hey, Tom, I'm not sure that I understood the question, but to clarify as I may, maybe you could correct me, but sales tax and property tax are entirely independent of each other. And
Right, I understand that part. I understand that part. But the thing is, the sale tax right now is past the property tax, correct?
Oh, you mean the amount that's actually
amount,
collected?
yeah.
Yeah, that does vary. That's correct. There's no set formula to that.
Are we gonna use the sale tax for the future based on we don't have to increase the property tax?
It all depends on what happens with the balance of the expenditures, because some communities, property tax and sales tax, they may get 10% of their budget out of property tax. Some of them may get 90% out of property tax. So the more the other revenues, and what is true, Mr. Hewen, is that as the other revenues increase, it takes budget pressure off of property tax, just as you would have any type of revenue. As it increases, it makes the pressure on the other source of revenue less, but it doesn't reduce the cost of operating the city, which continues to grow.
Thank you.
Anything else? So are we ready to go to the public comment now? Okay, then we will open the public hearing. Thank you, Jim. And yeah, don't go too far because we may have more. Or did you have anything else, Mr. Pyle?
No, sir.
Oh,
Thanks.
okay. Then we have two people who wanted to speak to this.
Oh, Nicole, I'm sorry. Mayor, I forgot. Nicole, let me know there is somebody online
For the budget?
public sign up. Yeah.
Okay.
For the budget.
Why don't we do that one first? I don't know why I do them first online, but I do.
Michael Espinoza.
Hello. Thanks for taking some time to hear my comment. Mr. Mayor, I appreciate.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much for your time tonight, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate taking some time. Just give a little bit of background. I've been a resident of West Valley City for just over a year, and I'm the median age of West Valley citizens of 30.5 years old. So one of the reasons I came to West Valley was for the affordability compared to the rest of the state of Utah. And when it comes to the value of my home, I've noticed that there's been a 14.82% taxable value increase over just the last year. And with the different, judgment levies, different school district additions, it's worked out to 8.4% increase in my taxes. So I realize that some of these other entities are responsible. For instance, Granite School District is a 27% increase year over year. I realize that, but I just like to make a comment that we're still residents of West Valley City overall. And as young working professionals, it's good to have that growth and vitalize the city, but just to think about maybe other ways in our budget that we could perhaps use that increase of sales tax. There's been an increase in population in the city year over year over the last several years to see if there might be some room to trim down the city's actual budget. I know that costs go up, but an 8.5% real increase in taxes is pretty significant. And so I'll definitely be attending future city council meetings as well as going to the Granite School District meeting. But just want to make you aware that we definitely feel the pressures of rising costs and inflation and overall taxes as well, just to keep in mind that as we try and build the community and flourish, that's something that especially us younger folks are pressured with. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Burris.
Thank you for hearing me, Mr. Mayor. I am here to talk about my personal tax valuation and increase. To start with, if you happen to have that handout that I had, number one says the property location is at 6120 West Confedora Drive. I propose that there's never been a tax appraiser out there to that property because it doesn't exist. So if I'm paying taxes on that property, I don't owe any taxes. But my tax bill comes to my correct address, so I'm probably liable for that. I noticed that the 2020 market value of my house was at $269,300. Now the current 2021 market value is $344,600. That's a huge increase. I'm 78 years old. I'm on a fixed income, and that's as a result of that. If you look at the tax valuation, notice that the property changes from 2021 to from 2020 to 2021, if no budget change, that's a 10% increase. And if you look at 2021, no budget change to a 2021 taxing, if it's approved, that's another 10% increase. That's a 20% increase in my taxes in 1 year. Now that being said, I've only lived here in West Valley City for 13 months. So I purchased my house in the July of last year, which puts it in the 2020 tax year. And I paid $328,500, which is a value less than what they are valuing my property. So I propose that my property be valued at instead of the that's the $328,000. So that is what I'd like to present to you, and I appreciate you hearing me.
Yeah, just a clarification on the valuations. The city has zero control of that.
I know.
That's all the county. And there are places where you can go and appeal that and talk with them on it.
They did say the right to be heard, and they gave this address and at this time, so that's why I'm
Well,
here.
yeah, you're welcome to come here, but we have no authority to change any valuation.
As I was sitting here listening to the other presentations, I realized that I probably am in the wrong spot.
No, but we're glad you came.
Thank you.
I apologize that we weren't the right people. Well, I don't know. I don't want to be the county people who have to do those, but yes. And you highlight some issues, and one is when the value goes up, as you saw here on your property, this is a great example. We do not, as a city, get any additional revenue on that home. There is no tax increase for us.
Right.
Okay. For an individual, depending on how their property increased versus someone else, you may have an increase or a decrease, just depending on how it works out. But no, state law actually prohibits us from getting additional tax just because your property value went up. And that's true of across the state, okay?
I noticed that the line item for West Valley City is stagnant. So
yeah,
and
so
most of the increase was from the Granite School District.
yeah. So yeah, it's sad, but it's a little difficult to track. But it is a good thing that was set up originally to make sure that we just didn't get a lot more money just because your property values went up. That's an issue this year because property values have gone up so much. Usually it's just minor. But thank you for coming. And do you have a comment?
Yes, Mr. Burris, on your notice, there's a right to appeal box.
Right.
And it gives you a website you can go to appeal with the county by September 15th.
Right. I noticed that. But I just thought that I would, well, one of the reasons I appeared was because I want to make that little statement at the beginning, humorous, that the property I'm paying taxes on just doesn't exist.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Mr. Visa.
All right, deal with me because some of this was public comment, but I've turned it into the tax thing. So property taxes. I've owned my home, I think 6 years now. If the value that they have on there and what I can get for it is not the same. Some of you have owned your homes for 30 years. You see this. Unfortunately, when you buy in this crazy market, you're going to be higher than the year before. That's just the way it works. California a long time ago did Proposition 13, and that froze a lot of people's properties for a while, but then it hurt California. So do we want something like that here? Probably not. But it'd be nice to have our taxes lower. We all want taxes lower. On the on budget, I noticed one of the lines in the revenue source is the parking tickets fined. They're proposing that it's going to go down by, what's it, 46%. Well, if you'll, first of all, if whoever is restricting them from enforcing the new signed law by the mayor, you know, that's revenue coming in. When you compare them to code enforcement, now I can't see what the cost of the parking guys are because there isn't a line in that, but I know there's 3 of them. The revenue, even using that number and comparing them to our ordinance enforcement guys, once again, we're looking for compliance in both of them. They're a lot more efficient, 3 of them, compared the same revenue under the ACE program is what's proposed, which I submit is an inaccurate number, but it's used for budget. They're a lot more efficient. Why don't we have 4 code enforcement and 7 parking? That's one thing. Balanced budget. You know how I feel about that. I think we should have an all-inclusive budget. Yeah, right now, numbers look unbalanced. Look at last year's budget and compare it at the end. Other than the COVID expenditures, and now we've got a lot of that money back, the numbers don't, it's always higher than what's right here. You know, you open the budget for the fleet. We know we're going to buy X number of cars every single year. It should be in here. It's not, you know, so it's just one of the little things. And that's the way government does it, but that's what everybody keeps telling me. So one thing I noticed, city manager's office, 27.4% increase. That's a lot. Are we getting another city manager or is somebody expecting a big raise? That was something that stood out. How much we pay Utopia, I presume that's because of all our parks and buildings and everything has the free internet. And the question is, and I don't know the answer to it, do we go to Xfinity and say, can you beat that number when contracts come up and stuff? Or are we strictly Utopia because they spent all this money, you know, putting all the wires in underground, stuff like that? Google's doing it now in other cities. Are we going to go to Google and see if we can get a better deal on it? Because it's a lot of money, but there is a lot of feature to it. The budget on the parking, I would like to see what they are costing. I'd like to see a line on that, just like I'd like to see an accurate line on the collections from the ACE program, the code, you know, for code enforcement. The company that West Valley City has hired can produce a monthly statement. We can have an accurate number. I know the revenue numbers from doing my research, being at all those, listening to all those hearings and stuff. The number that's coming in isn't what we actually collect during the year because people pay $25 at a time. So that's how it manipulates the number, but I still don't believe that that's a true number. But there's no way to really tell because it doesn't separate it from what we get from animal control through the ACE court, what we get through code enforcement, stuff like that. Like a little bit more detail on that, but I've been asking for that for years. I don't think it's coming. I think that covers everything since I have an unlimited. Let's see, code versus budget. I think that's all I have on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, would you like to speak to the budget?
Daryl Curtis, just a note for the budget. You know, the numbers are all in different categories, but we really don't know what those categories are. And if there's a way to be able to hyperlink down into a more detail of what each of those categories are, it'd be helpful to know exactly where my tax dollars are going instead of just a generic line item on the budget. Giving a more detail, letting us see. I don't want every penny that's out there, but at least to be able to see in greater detail what is in there. When you talk about transparency and budget and everything else, I think that's very important. But you know, I've looked at the budget and tried to understand it, and it is still a little not quite there for me. So I'm sure others, even if they tried to look at it, be in a similar situation. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's everyone. With that, we'll close the public comment period, bring it back to the council.
Mayor, move for approval of resolution 21-139.
Second.
It's properly before us. Hearing no further comments. then to our city recorder for the vote.
Councilwoman Lang,
Yes.
Councilman Bueller,
Aye.
Councilman Hune,
No.
Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Nordfelt,
Yes.
and Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes by majority.
Thank you. Next, we have our consent agenda. We have two items on there, resolutions 21-140 and 141. These are in conjunction with the 4700 South project that we will be working on. And these are routine efforts to purchase some property, utility easements, temporary construction easements in order to do the work that will occur on on that road. And so those are fairly routine, and so we just put them there together. Council.
Move to approve the two items on the consent agenda.
Second.
Properly before us, hearing no further comments, to our city recorder for the vote.
Councilman Nordfelt,
Yes.
Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Hune,
Aye.
Councilman Bueller,
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang,
Yes.
and Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. That completes our agenda. We have no need for a closed session. Any final comments from Mr. Pyle? Anything from the council? Then we're done.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. That's what I was waiting for. Without objection, then we will stand adjourned. Hearing no objections, we are adjourned. Thank you.